That's not me.
That's you in the early.
That's not me.
That was quite the different picture of.
That's right.
You got
That's my
more?
friend Joe. I don't know. He's not even here.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Akshay Khanna, managing partner with Avasant. As Samantha mentioned, we are now between you and the final session. We have the easy job of wrapping everything up from last couple of days that we've heard. And to help me with that, I have the honor of hosting Daniel and John. So Daniel is the Chief Customer and Innovation Officer at MGM International. He leads all of the customer functions, including loyalty, revenue management, and also customer care, customer analytics. And then he also wears the hat for enterprise innovation. And prior to that, he's been Chief Strategy Officer at Aristocrat, helping them with their corp dev, corporate strategy. So really excited to have you, Daniel. And prior to that, he's also he's been a consultant. He's worn many hats. So really glad to have you, Daniel, here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. And joining us is John. John's been a serial entrepreneur, done multiple startups in the social, AI, mobile space. I'm perhaps missing a few. And then having exited to firms like Accenture. And he currently leads the GBS and AI portfolio at DXC, helping clients across different industries and different geographies. So welcome, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I know we've been talking a lot in the last couple of days really around different technologies. Of course, AI has been top of mind for everybody. But I think what I thought we'll do in the tech-enabled services, how do we bring it all together and what does it mean to apply it in the context of enterprises, right? So one of the things I think Rodrigo talked about in the morning session was how in the last 25, 30 years, computing platforms have evolved, right? From mainframes to client server to internet, mobile, and AI now. Given your hat, Daniel, I want to look at that from a customer perspective. What does it mean from customer? How is the customer journey or experience, especially looking at your vantage point from a hospitality and entertainment perspective? Maybe because technology is great, but if the customers don't have a superior experience leveraging it doesn't amount to anything. So wanted to get your thoughts on, how do you see it from wearing the hat that you wear from a customer lens perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not new news that technology over the course of my career. I mean, it has really made the customer experience better in a number of different ways. So I do want to make sure I do leave you with something fairly insightful besides that. But generally speaking, we see high degree of tailoring. Before I think we'd sort of look at customers and say like, who's the most valuable, and let's start prioritizing from there. But now we can actually shape our offerings to even a very sort of almost on an individual level in a lot of cases. I will say the interesting thing about just generally that I've seen over the course of my career, I think. Oftentimes, industries, I've worked for a lot of large companies, worked in television, I've worked in, gaming, where there's a lot of barriers to entry, like large companies, have, established, very incumbent positions there. But, one sort of axiom I always find is that, the customer actually always wins in the long run. And if you have technology that actually sort of improves that experience, even if it seems at the moment that like there's no way that the standard industry structure or business models change, I wouldn't bet on that.
Yeah, I mean you started your career in telecom and then television, so of course you've seen that from going from a bigger screen to a 6-inch screen. And all the evolution in terms of content, and so the entire business models have been disrupted, and of course the personalization then starts to come in as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you look at like I started in television, at a really good time with Comedy Central and MTV, and I think like we we knew a lot of people were watching TV. I mean, hopefully, you know, a lot of people in this room were watching it, and then think about how you watch it today, right? Like, I mean, just, you know, you don't have ads, you can get it whenever you want. I mean, that's, you know, and the companies that provide it for you are very, you know, are different than how it was before, so.
Yeah. John, any perspective? I mean, you've done several startups in the mobile space, AI space. How do you view that from a customer experience or customer expectation perspective?
Yeah, and I think customers actually get a bad rap. I think we over-index on customers at the retail level, but you know, at the everybody in business has a customer, right?
B2B. Yeah.
And I think you know, really being able to personalize even on the B2B side is a really, really important part. I mean, there's so many companies currently, and I'm sure MGM has this, I don't know that for a fact, but you know, there's probably a lot of friction in the system through their suppliers and vendor network, right? And I think, you know, using contemporary technologies in an appropriate way is gonna help influence that. None of this is new. I mean, we were talking, you know, before this about personalization and how personalization was a huge topic for a number of years in the 2010s. Everybody's really indexing on it, and we saw a lot of momentum on it. It seems like there's been a bit of a pullback, and I'm surprised now with the sort of generative conversations, we're not really, again, indexing into that sort of conversation, because I think now we have the opportunity to truly have a personal. Before it was sort of like, you know, a database of, you know, weights and whatever that you could sort of serve up stuff based on history, but now you can generate something, and so if you know the behavior, your historical behavior of your vendors, say, you then can easily curate and generate, if you have the right data employed, to something more meaningful for that consumer.
Well, it's very much top of mind. I mean, like, maybe it's quieted off because it's just, you know, you got to do it, and you know, people, it isn't so buzzy as it might have been. But yeah, it's for at least us, you know, we talk about it all the time, and how do we get better at it?
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, especially in your field, Daniel, classical AI or machine learning models have been in use for decades now, from a revenue optimization, pricing analytics, and all of that. So of course that's been happening, and that continues to get better, I think, John, to your point, because the amount of data that we are collecting, the number of touch point intelligence that we are gathering about, you know, their behavior and so on and so forth. So how are you seeing that at MGM, and then how do you see that getting really turbocharged with Gen AI and other improvements in AI and other technologies?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, you know, AI has been, you know, especially like if you talk about machine learning and neural networks, I mean, it's, you know, we use it to, you know, make the customer experience better. I mean, I think, you know, the real exciting part about like the generative AI and just, you know, further evolution in AI technology is that we are going to be able to, you know, shape experiences to almost at the individual level, or individual on a real-time basis. If I can get, you know, to kind of a target state. And that's exciting because, you know, whoever thought you could do that, right? Like, you know, if you go back a couple decades.
Yeah. No, and I think we've talked a lot about, you know, what are the emerging use cases for generative AI and even kind of more broadly AI. And a lot of them tend to be on the kind of efficiency, productivity spectrum. But again, in your domain, I feel there's a lot of opportunity to really tap into new revenue pools, tap into new augmentation of revenue, which is where I think the loyalty and everything plays in. So, are you seeing some use cases there for you? And then maybe John, you want to add if you're seeing some in some other industries?
Yeah. So I mean, generally speaking, you know, the philosophy is, the more you tailor and customize your experience to an individual, you know, hopefully the more they'll spend time with you, and you know, the more they'll pay you. And you know, it all works, you know, to that end, and you know, they'll have a much better experience, and you know, are happy to you know, pay for that. And I think that's really what the tools and processes that we've you know, sort of looked at and put in place have really been targeting.
Okay. John, any perspectives from other industries?
Yeah, well, I think for instance, MGM is a destination, right? So
Yeah.
you probably won't have as big an issue, but I think the future of some of these enabled services, tech-enabled services, is about, as a supplier to a customer, it's really about abstraction and aggregation, because unless you're a destination, there's going to be this desire to serve up a number of things from this personalized standpoint. Because if we take it one step farther, and I don't think it's actually a big reach, I think with the distribution of devices at scale to the extent that we have it, since 2007 really, with the advent of the iPhone, we have the ability to distribute this sort of technology very, very quickly, and therefore I do think this personalized sort of concierge to our life is going to be a real thing. Therefore, those who have products in the market, the days of trying to compete at the ecosystem level for eyeballs. Oh, I need them to download my app. I need them to go to my website. I need them to go to my real estate digitally. Well, I think that's all going away a lot sooner than people realize because of the distribution of tech. Because eventually that personalization will push all those sort of input-output environments down. All those UIs that people have been working on and we've all been a part of are going to be pushed down below below the waterline, and then you're going to have to abstract all your data and put it into an aggregator or be the aggregator, right? Because I'm going to look. I mean, iOS 18 is going to have a lot of on-chip AI. It's not a far reach for anybody to think they're LLM when they come out with it. And look, by the way, Siri's essentially a small LLM, right? It's not a large language, it's sort of a small language model. And we all know Apple's going to come out big, even though they're going to always be trailing. They're going to come out big, and it's going to be in the hands of probably the majority of the people in this room. And when that happens, the companies who are going to survive are going to have abstraction of their business to be able to put into that aggregation layer. And that aggregation layer is really, really important because, I mean, from my own personal anecdotal experience, if I can just ask Siri to do something for me, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to your app. I don't want to go to anybody's app. I want that personalization to make my life. One of the things I love about technology today is that it affords wonderful conveniences that previous generations could have never imagined.
Yep.
Right. So I think the opportunity is incredible, and it is at that inflection point. We're at that point where in the next few years, it's going to start becoming real. We've talked about these things for a while, and we watch these slow incremental improvements with, all these, but these step changes are very rare in our environment. I think we have had a step change, and we're sort of all figuring out, what does it actually mean? But I think aggregation and abstraction are the big keys to unlocking that for all businesses.
And I would say we wouldn't be immune to that. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a physical platform, but we also generate a lot of data. We do not necessarily want to. I mean, we'll provision our own app, in today's environment. But if there is a more powerful, or more integrated orchestration layer that can get our customers more engaged and involved, I mean, that is probably a better solution than us just trying to go it alone.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think Kevin in his keynote also spoke about how this change is accelerating. So the cycle of innovations is shortening, and then the productivity and disruptions just happening at a much faster scale. So this is, again, would love to hear your thoughts, but I don't think it's going to take as long as it took, in the mobile era, when the line used to be developed. There's an app for that. I think that's going away soon. There's an agent for that, and you're going to have multiple of these agents in your abstraction layer, helping us having that seamless experience, irrespective of what task or what databases or whatever I need to consume. So,
that's right.
But you think it's coming faster, or would love to get your.
I mean, I do. I mean, I think I was giving you guys the example. I'll give the audience this example. How many people here have heard of Fold 42? So Fold 42 is, if you take a piece of paper and you fold it 42 times over, it's pretty amazing because people don't understand compound growth. It's really hard. We think linearly, we hear things linearly, we read things linearly, we can't consume things in multi-dimensions sort of. But when you start to fold pieces of paper at about 33 folds, you have to start measuring the height of that paper in kilometers. By 42 folds, you are literally at the moon, from the Earth's surface to the moon. It's hard for us to comprehend. It's a piece of paper, right? And I think we're at about fold 33, right? 34, 33. And I was very pensive, the last couple of years, or maybe 8, 6, 9 years ago, something like that. I was very pensive to sort of have that runaway train get everybody excited. But I think this step change with generative really took the community by surprise. Even the best PhDs in AI were surprised because theoretically it worked with the transformer architecture, but we realized the more brute force we put into it, the more successful it was. So now you see these hyperscaling, you see the accelerated computing and all these things, and then eventually we're going to transform into a different state of computing. Quantum will be coming online, and therefore those step changes are going to be dramatic, right? And if we go from 33 to 42, it's a huge change, and it's something that I think we have to take a very sober look at. What does it mean? Because companies there was a disruption cycle in the early 2010, 2011 when mobile was disrupting things, and that term disruption probably could start to be reused the way we were using it back then, because I think there's going to be a lot of businesses that don't have the physical infrastructure, but that have a lot of digital infrastructure they've built for 20, 30 years, sometimes longer, and the ability to have someone come out of nowhere and disrupt your business because they've got an agentic company with a bunch of AI agents supporting one or two. We're going to have billion-dollar companies with 2 or 3 people in it, right? And that's a reality. That's coming. And so, as a company, like I think for companies that live in that space that don't have physical assets, like the hospitality business, you got to think about how much gasoline can you pour on the problem to solve this problem, because you got to get rid of your infrastructure and make it more adaptable to pivot, or disruption will be real. Yeah.
You and I have got to go start a company.
Great, let's do it.
That's $1 billion right here.
There you go, Bill. Yeah, that's $1 billion, right?
So I think on that point, just to pivot a little bit, of course, now you've done all the hype, John. How do you make it real? And I'm gonna, Dan, look at you. How do you? Obviously, we understand it's coming. You got to be prepared. But how do you bring innovation into a large incumbent organization like an MGM or some of the others? And I know you've worn several different hats, but how do you? What are the kind of challenges that you face in terms of bringing, and then how have you seen kind of that play out? I know you've kind of worn a corp dev and corp strategy hat. Maybe you want to.
Sure. It's a tough question. I mean, at the end of the day, large companies are where you have scale, at least at the moment. So, you have a fantastic venture and entrepreneurial ecosystem that's trying to really generate innovation. And, kind of how do you marry the two? Oftentimes, you're looking down the road at technology that's, probably, speculative in terms of application today. And big companies aren't very good at doing that. I wear an operator hat today, so I look at technology as, okay, well, what can it do for me right now, and can it make my call center better, or can it make me more money? The innovation hat sort of says, well, okay, there's a couple promising tech on the horizon, maybe not so future state as 42 folds, but coming down the pike that we can see generative AI being one of them, and at what point do we sort of integrate it into our operations, and what do we need to see? If you're operating, going back to my last role where I was, I headed corporate strategy and M&A, and I basically said we were going to start operating in an environment where, there would be digitization in gambling, and, where, we needed to stay on top of the potential disruptions that would come into play. Do we actually take investments? And I think that's a part where there's an argument to be made on either side. Oftentimes in the venture community, you will kind of hear, oh, well, you know, so-and-so company, MGM, Amazon, you know, they have a lot of capital. Why wouldn't they want to invest in my company? I can give them a high return. Well, you know, at a large company, really, you're not there to be a fund, and you know, your shareholders aren't, you know, asking you to measuring you on the ROI. So really, it's the strategic optionality that you have to bet on, which is tough, and you know, you can't spend a big part of your balance sheet doing it, and so, you know, a lot of companies aren't willing to do that. Some will, you know, kind of dip a toe in it. When you hit it, like Microsoft, I'd argue with Gen AI, you know, Chat GPT. I don't know if they, you know, how much they were, you know, like where they were in their conversations, but then it becomes a no-brainer. But I gotta believe, and I think I may know, like, you know, during that, up until then, I'm sure the CFO kind of said, maybe I'd rather put this money in my own stock and get a better return than putting it in your fund. I'm sure they're not saying that now, but.
Yeah. So you've seen that successfully play out in kind of your role in terms of funding them, kind of giving them the access to customers, and then at some point in time bringing them and kind of integrating them as kind of mainstream.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of if you're a company that is you know, undergoing, you know, a lot of change, you think that there's the high probability that there's disruptive tech that's going to, you know, basically jeopardize your business model. Like I feel personally that like it's a good idea to do that. If you're a more stable business, like, you know, you're pretty entrenched, it's not going to happen anytime soon, you know, I might not. So it really depends on who you are, but clearly, you know, you can see some people who've really knocked it out of the park, and then there's others who've set up these funds, and then, you know, they're sort of have the dialogue every day to, you know, upon like what's their value. So
Got it.
It's a tough one.
John, any perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think to make it tangible, I think data is still the biggest problem at hand. I mean, I remember when I had my AI services company, one of the first clients we had this amazing opportunity to transform a huge platform within their business and sort of consolidate a bunch of bullshit that they had built up over the years. And the data journey with which we found ourselves was like an 18-month journey to clean up this data in a meaningful way to have it be useful, right? It was just trapped in all these crazy things. And it was just they went pale. They couldn't believe it was 18. Like, wait a minute, 18 months, and how much money? It's like, it was a lot of money. And I think that is, if your data is not in order as a company, you need to call someone like DXC and help you get that in order. Because I'm not saying that it's tomorrow, but it's soon. And there's another way to look at it for your own self-preservation. I do believe with the generative technology and other parts of the advancements of what we call, you know, AI in computer science, it will afford the ability to sort of imbue these machines with the zeitgeist of the company, right? So the emotions of the company. Every company has an emotion. It has a way of doing things. It has a zeitgeist, as I like to say, and we will be, you know, imbuing that into these machines and having that be captured there. The culture of the company is going to be captured. You look at, like, for instance, on X, you've got Grok, has a personality, right? I don't know if you use it or not, but it's got a personality. It's got a different personality than Bard. It's got a different personality than Gemini. They're very early days. These are very early days, but eventually your company and every company is going to have their own, you know, personal sort of representation of that, and how we do things is known in that system, and how, you know, the cultural aspects are going to be really important. But you cannot get there without your data in order. Now, there's going to be wonderful tools. I know there are actually wonderful tools coming out right now that will allow us to accelerate that data cleanup. There are going to be things through the emergence of this generative technology that are going to help us accelerate those pathways. So instead of 18 months, maybe it's 6 months. And it's still probably $10 million, whatever, I don't know. They're not cheap, and this is where I think people don't realize. They say, oh, I'll wait, but if you go back to that Fold 42, theory, you've got this issue where things are gonna happen to you, and you don't wanna do that. So we do know, this is not novel to anybody in the room, data, you gotta get it in order. And you gotta realize you have to be outcome driven. I have a definition of AI that still works today, and I've used it for about a decade. And it's AI isn't a thing. It's a tapestry of technologies and techniques that are employed for a desired outcome. If you don't know what your outcome is, don't spend money on AI. That's stupid. Figure out why you want to do what you want to do, and then get all the bits and bobs and the technologies and the techniques, and whether it's generative or not, who cares? Is it going to serve the outcome that you need for your customers and your shareholders? If it's not, don't spend money on it. If you're uncertain, I can be certain in telling you that you just must get your data in order to be usable at scale. That's a baseline foundation. If you haven't done that, if you haven't convinced your powers that be or whatever, whoever's in control of the purse, to spend in gobs of money to organize your data in a meaningful way, you're going to definitely be left behind.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it.
No, absolutely. So I think, sentient machines are going to be a thing soon, right?
Well, I don't think.
No, but I think, John, what you say, I would flag that because it is true, and it's not the sexiest work to get it in order. It is long and time-consuming and expensive and difficult to do. While you're doing your business as well. On top of that,
yeah.
And trying to make improvements. But I agree with you. If there's one thing you take away from here, it's that that is going to be a foundation for business success in the future.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that's what we see in terms of our client interactions. Start with customers, work backwards in terms of what is going to deliver superior value to them, whether it's in terms of experience or outcomes and so on and so forth, and kind of work backwards. And of course, I think you're going to need a lot of data in order, you're going to need infrastructure in order, and that's where I think the entire notion of tech-enabled service is really bringing all of the tech together.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need core tech, where people are developing either these models or hardware and software, and then how does it all come together? I mean, even at this conference, you have a lot of systems integrators, technology OEMs, and everybody who's trying to bring all of that together. And the other challenge that I see with enterprises, they don't necessarily have all the skill sets in-house. So it's always better to, bring the ecosystem together and then kind of use that to drive those outcomes for your customers, right? So it's just going to get you there faster, and with a lot more creativity, right? So I know we have a couple of minutes. Any final thoughts, Daniel? Any piece of advice that you would have for both kind of buyers of technologies and providers of technologies that are there with us today?
Look, I think I hit on all my beats. Definitely, the customer is going to drive demand and your business, and so no matter what you see in front of you, don't forget about super serving them. Technology is a key way to do that and to enable both those experiences, and not only get a great customer experience, but also make more money. You're going to have to get your data in order, to rip off something John just said. And I think those would be kind of the three takeaways I'd get.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I really cannot impress upon everybody enough that everybody thinks their data is in order until you start to try to use it, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's not in order. So do analysis, do that analysis. Look at, zoom out at the whole business and understand where it's trapped, who it's trapped. Do you own the data? Do you not own the data? A lot of times people will find that they don't own some of the data and that's a shocking realization to people, like companies that aren't necessarily technology forward, and they finally get some people in there to go, hey, let's go do something meaningful and interesting and innovative, and then they don't even have data. Then you're really out of luck, because buying data is incredibly expensive still to this day. Anyway, I think data is really, if I summarize it down, this is a plug for companies like DXC, but there's many of us in the marketplace, you know, being able to bring our, you know, war stories along and help you get from point A to point B. Having a partner in that journey is key. I mean, it takes, all these experiences take a village, because it takes the Microsofts, the AWSs, the consultancies, the, you know, a whole host of them. And don't be afraid to ask, because I think everybody in this room and beyond, I think in technology, we have a optimistic view of the future, maybe to a fault, but let's work on it together.
But that's the fun part of being in technology. So on that note, I think thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, for sharing this. And again, thank you everybody for your time, and we look forward to continuing the conversations. Thank you.
Now to the drinks, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.